Isadora Fontaine, a successful businesswoman and owner of several jewelry stores, was returning to her luxurious mansion after a hectic day at work. The reflection of the city lights shone in the windows of her stores as she struggled to maintain a balance between her career and her family. As she drove through the wet streets of the city, she thought about the challenges she faced daily as a businesswoman and a mother. Her two oldest children had already followed their paths in life. They had married and moved on with their lives. The only company she had now was her youngest daughter, Camila, a lively and energetic girl who was the ray of sunshine in her life. Seeing the beggar boy soaked by the rain, Isadora felt a tightening in her heart. She knew what it was like to be helpless and vulnerable, and she couldn't just ignore someone in need. Despite all the worries and responsibilities that weighed on her shoulders, Isadora knew she couldn't turn her back on that boy. With her words echoing in the humid air, she asked him, "What are you doing here alone, boy?" The boy looked up, his eyes full of sadness and helplessness. "I'm lost, ma'am. I don't know where to go," he answered with a weak and trembling voice. At that moment, Isadora felt a squeeze in her heart, seeing the condition of the child. She knew she couldn't leave him there alone at the mercy of the storm. "Come with me," she said gently, holding out her hand. "I'll take you home with me. You can get warm and eat something." The boy hesitated for a moment, looking at Isadora with mistrust. "You won't hurt me?" he asked, his words shaken by fear. Isadora smiled gently, trying to convey confidence to the child. "Of course not," she said. "I just want to help. Come, let's get out of the rain before you catch a cold." Isadora extended her hand towards the child. "My name is Isadora Fontaine. And yours?" The boy hesitated for a moment, looking at Isadora's outstretched hand before finally shaking it. "I'm Raphael," he answered in a soft and hesitant voice. Isadora smiled gently. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Raphael. Why don't you get in the car? I'll take you home where you can get warm and eat something," she said. Raphael looked at the car hesitantly, but then nodded slowly. "Thank you, ma'am. Isadora, I appreciate it." Isadora opened the car door for him, and the boy got in, still a little cautious. "You can just call me Isadora, Raphael, and there's nothing to thank. I'm just doing what anyone would do in a situation like this," she said, closing the door softly before getting into the car. As they drove through the city in the heavy rain, Isadora felt a mix of emotions. She looked at Raphael beside her and saw the expression of gratitude mixed with a hint of apprehension on his dirty and wet face. Then, "Raphael, do you have a house, a family?" she asked, keeping a kind tone. Raphael looked at the floor of the car for a moment before answering, "No, I don't have anyone. I'm alone," he mumbled, looking a little embarrassed. Isadora felt her heart tighten with sadness. "Well, then you can stay at my house tonight, and maybe even more than that if you want," she said, looking at him with compassion. "You're welcome to stay with me and my family until we figure out what to do next." They finally arrived at Isadora's luxurious mansion. The rain continued to fall outside, hitting the windows as they entered the house, leaving behind the cold and humidity of the night. Isadora led Raphael to the living room, where a fireplace crackled warmly, spreading a cozy feeling throughout the environment. "Please, make yourself at home, Raphael," said Isadora as she took the wet coat off the boy and hung it near the fireplace to dry. "I'm going to prepare something hot to eat. Are you hungry?" "Yes, I'm very hungry. I can't remember the last time I ate a decent meal," he admitted, his body shivering from the cold as he nodded. His stomach growled loudly and ached from hunger. Isadora felt a tightening in her heart, seeing Raphael's state. She walked over to him and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Raphael. I'm going to prepare you something delicious," she promised him with a mix of compassion and concern. As she began to prepare a hot meal in the kitchen, Raphael sat in the living room, soaking up the comforting warmth of the fireplace. He looked around Isadora's luxurious home, marveling at the beauty and comfort he had never experienced before. Isadora soon returned with a tray full of steaming food, gently placing it on the coffee table in front of Raphael, and said with a gentle smile, "I hope you like it, Raphael. It's just a simple meal, but made with a lot of love." Raphael looked at the food in front of him with his mouth watering in anticipation. He thanked Isadora with a shy smile before beginning to eat voraciously, feeling the comforting warmth of the food fill his empty stomach and his heart with gratitude. Meanwhile, Isadora watched him with tenderness, knowing that she had done the right thing by taking him home and offering him support and comfort in his time of need. Isadora watched Raphael as he ate voraciously, but at the same time with a certain delicacy, as if each bite were a precious gift. She sat in a chair near him, her expression serious as she thought about how to approach the delicate subject of his past. "Raphael, can I ask you some questions?" she began in a soft and careful voice. Raphael looked up, his brown eyes meeting hers. He nodded slowly, a shadow of sadness passing through his face. "Of course, Isadora. What do you want to know?" he asked, his voice still containing traces of pain and suffering. Isadora took a deep breath before continuing. "You mentioned that you have no home or family. Would you mind telling me a little more about that, about your life on the streets?" she asked, maintaining a gentle and compassionate tone. Raphael looked down at the empty plate in front of him, nervously playing with the edge of the plate. "I don't care," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I lost my parents when I was a newborn. I ended up in an orphanage, but things there weren't good," he confessed, feeling that getting that off his chest eased the sadness in his soul a little, since he wasn't ready to talk about that subject with anyone. With each word Raphael spoke, Isadora felt a pressure on her heart. She gently leaned towards him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Can you tell me what happened, Raphael?" "There's no hurry," she encouraged him to share his story. Raphael sighed, a mix of pain and anguish visible on his face. "I ran away from the orphanage because I couldn't take it anymore," he confessed, his words broken by the painful memories. "They were cruel to me, and they beat me every day as if I were trash. I couldn't take it anymore," he admitted as tears fell from his eyes. Isadora felt a lump in her throat hearing Raphael's words. She grabbed his hand firmly, transmitting support and compassion. "I'm so sorry you went through that, Raphael. You're a strong and brave boy for having survived all that," she said sincerely, with her heart broken by the pain he had faced so young. Isadora looked into Raphael's eyes with compassion and sincerity. "Raphael, stay with me for a while. My house is big, and there's more than enough room for you. You don't need to worry about being alone tonight or any other. I want you to feel safe and protected here," she said, her words transmitting a mix of kindness and firmness. Raphael looked down, feeling torn between the desire to accept Isadora's offer and the fear of becoming a burden to her. "I should stay alone tonight," he replied, full of regret and uncertainty. Isadora gently placed a hand on Raphael's shoulder, seeking to transmit security and comfort to him. "Raphael, please, let me help you. I don't want you to feel alone or helpless. I'm here for you, and that includes offering you a safe place to stay," she said with warmth, hoping to convince him to accept her offer. Raphael looked at the ground, his thoughts tumultuous with fears and uncertainties. He wanted to accept Isadora's offer, but something inside him prevented him from doing so. "I don't know, Isadora. I don't want to cause problems for you and your family," he assured with his voice full of insecurity. Isadora answered, "No, you will be a problem, Raphael. I promise my house is big enough for all of us," she said, trying to convince him to accept her offer. Raphael looked at Isadora, his eyes full of gratitude and hesitation. He wanted to believe in her. He wanted to believe that he had finally found a place where he could feel safe and protected, but fear still held him back. "I don't know, Isadora. I need to think about it." His voice broke at some moments. Isadora, understanding and respecting Raphael's decision, knew that he needed time to process everything that had happened and make a decision that was best for him. "Okay, Raphael, think calmly. But if you need anything, I'll be here," she said, offering him an encouraging smile. A small smile drew on his lips. He felt grateful for Isadora's offer, even though he wasn't ready to accept it yet. Raphael knew that she was a good and generous person, and that meant a lot to him. "Thanks, Isadora, for everything," he said, trying to contain the emotion he felt at that moment. The next morning, Isadora called Raphael to have breakfast, and upon entering the dining room, she found Camila sitting at the table with a sweet smile on her face. "Isadora, with a warm and proud smile at her daughter for having treated Raphael so well, approached them and took the opportunity to introduce Camila, hoping that they would begin a beautiful friendship. Raphael gently looked at Camila, impressed by her sweetness and innocence. "Hello, Camila. I'm Raphael. It's a pleasure to meet you," he said with a kind smile. Camila returned the smile, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Hello, Raphael. Do you want to play with me after breakfast?" she asked excitedly. Feeling welcomed by the hospitality and kindness of Isadora and her daughter, Raphael replied, "Of course, I would love to play with you, Camila," feeling his heart warm at the prospect of spending more time with the girl. While they were having breakfast together, Raphael experienced a feeling of belonging and joy that he had not felt in a long time. He looked around the table, seeing the warm smiles of Isadora and Camila, and knew that he had found a home where he truly belonged. After breakfast, Isadora approached Raphael with a harmonious smile. "I know this is a big decision, but I want you to know that you are welcome to stay with us as long as you need. This house is now your home," she said with a mix of kindness and sincerity, full of hope. Raphael looked at Isadora, his eyes filled with gratitude and emotion. He knew that he could not have found a more generous and compassionate person than her. With a radiant smile, he accepted her offer. "Thank you, Isadora. I am happy to have found a home here with you and your family," he said, almost unable to believe that all of that was not a dream but her new reality. At the end of the day, Isadora anxiously awaited the arrival of her husband, Fernando, who was returning from a long business trip. She was nervous to share with him what had happened during the day, especially about Raphael, the child she had temporarily welcomed at home. As soon as Fernando walked through the door, Isadora ran to greet him with a warm hug. "Dear, how good that you are back," said Isadora to Fernando with a smile, trying to hide her anxiety. Fernando looked at Isadora with curiosity, immediately noticing the tension on her face. "What is wrong, Isadora? Why do you seem so worried?" he asked, his expression turning into a mix of worry and confusion. Isadora took a deep breath, preparing herself for the difficult conversation that was coming. "Fernando, something happened today while you were out. I found a child in the streets soaked by the rain. I couldn't just leave him outside, so I invited him to stay with us for a while," she explained, unable to contain her apprehension. Fernando frowned, shocked by Isadora's revelation. "You invited a stranger into our house, Isadora? Don't you think that's dangerous? What if he's a criminal or something?" he asked, his concern reflected in every word. Isadora shook her head firmly. "I know it may seem crazy, Fernando, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. He's just a child, and he was clearly in trouble. Plus, I couldn't just ignore someone who needed help," she answered, her voice sounding determined. Fernando sighed, torn between his concern for Isadora but still feeling uneasy about the situation, and said seriously, "I understand, Isadora, but you need to consider that the safety of our family is the priority. We will talk more about this and decide what to do next," Fernando said, the seriousness of his expression revealing his concern during dinner. She introduced Raphael to Fernando, her husband. Raphael was sitting at the table nervously with Isadora's husband, whose expression was a mix of curiosity and caution. "Fernando, this is Raphael, the young man I found on the streets and whom I invited to stay temporarily with us," said Isadora in her voice, conveying a fragile hope. Fernando looked at Raphael, his eyes analyzing him carefully while he extended his hand in a gesture of greeting. "Nice to meet you, Raphael," he said in a calm voice, but his gaze was penetrating, his distrust evident. Raphael shook Fernando's hand, trying to convey a sense of confidence. "The pleasure is mine, sir. I appreciate that you allow me to stay here," he said with humility, his voice revealing a bit of nervousness. During dinner, the atmosphere was tense with Fernando throwing occasional glances toward Raphael, while Isadora tried to keep the conversation going. Raphael tried hard to appear calm, but could not ignore the feeling of being constantly evaluated by Fernando. Despite the tension, Isadora tried to keep a light atmosphere, bringing up trivial and friendly topics. However, there was an underlying tension that permeated the room, making it difficult for everyone to truly relax. After dinner, Fernando approached Raphael, his serious look and firm words. "Raphael, can we talk for a moment?" Raphael felt a lump in his throat as he followed Fernando out of the dining room, preparing himself for the conversation that would follow. Fernando walked over to his office and sat down at the desk. The atmosphere was solemn, with the soft light of the desk lamp casting shadows on the walls. Fernando looked at Raphael seriously, his eyes a mix of curiosity and caution. "Raphael, I'd like to talk a little about your intentions here in our house. Can you tell me what I can expect from you?" he asked, his tone of voice firm but not intimidating. Raphael swallowed, feeling the pressure of Fernando's question. He knew he needed to be honest and direct in his answer. He humbly said, "Mr. Fernando, I have no intention other than to be grateful for the opportunity that Sora Adora has given me. I promise to respect the rules of the house and help in whatever is necessary. I don't want to cause any trouble." Fernando, seeming to consider Raphael's words, was silent for a moment, reflecting on the young man's response. He finally spoke, his expression softened. "Our priority is the safety and well-being of our family," he said, his voice full of fatherly concern. Raphael nodded, understanding Fernando's concern. "I understand, sir. I promise to do my best not to cause any inconvenience. I am very grateful for the kindness your family has shown me," he replied in a voice showing genuine gratitude. Fernando looked at Raphael, evaluating him for a moment, then smiled a kind and comforting gesture. "Well then, let's consider this a new beginning. If you need anything, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm here to help." Raphael smiled back at Fernando, feeling a weight lifted from his shoulders. He knew he still had a lot to prove, but he was determined to show Fernando that he could trust him. "Thank you, sir." "Fernando, I appreciate that very much," he said, his voice full of hope. Fernando watched the scene from the garden of his mansion through the office window when he saw Isadora, Camila, and Raphael together. The three of them were sitting on a bench, laughing and playing as if they were a family. A tightness formed in his chest as he watched the interaction between them, feeling a pang of jealousy and resentment infiltrating his heart. As he watched them, Fernando couldn't help but think, "Is Isadora beginning to see Raphael as a substitute for me? Am I losing my place in my own family?" The thought deeply disturbed him, leaving him with a feeling of insecurity and vulnerability. The voice of reason tried to calm his fears, reminding him that Isadora was his wife and Camila his daughter. However, the image of them so close to Raphael tormented him, awakening a pain that he did not know how to relieve. He wondered if he should confront Isadora about his feelings, but the fear of what he might discover paralyzed him. As he continued watching, Fernando saw Isadora and Raphael sharing an intimate moment, exchanging warm glances that made clear the mutual affection between them. His heart tightened even more with the vision, feeding his jealousy and increasing his resentment towards the young man. He felt excluded and betrayed, and the weight of those emotions left him lost in a sea of internal conflicts that he did not know how to face. Fernando entered the office with firm steps, his serious expression betraying the storm that was forming inside him. Isadora, who was sitting at the desk, raised her eyes when she saw him enter, immediately noticing the tension in his face. "Fernando, what's wrong? You seem worried," she asked, her voice full of apprehension. He closed the door behind him with a heavy sigh, crossing his arms over his chest as Isadora approached him. "We need to talk about Raphael," he began, his voice sounding firm. Isadora frowned, surprised by Fernando's direct approach. "What's wrong with Raphael? Has he done something?" she asked, her concern increasing. Fernando, worried, took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions while he explained. "I want Isadora to leave. I don't think it's safe to have him here, especially after what I saw today in the garden." Isadora opened her eyes wide, surprised by Fernando's demand. "But Fernando, he's just a child. He has nowhere to go," she defended, her voice showing compassion. Fernando continued to express himself with determination and nodded firmly. "I understand, Isadora, but that doesn't change the fact that his presence here is causing tension in our family. I don't want him to replace me." Isadora felt a lump in her throat, understanding Fernando's point of view, mixed with a feeling of helplessness in the face of the situation. "Fernando, Raphael is not trying to replace you. He's just a child who needs help, and we can offer it to him," she argued, her voice tinged with frustration. Fernando looked at Isadora for a moment, seeing the determination in her eyes, but also sensing the tension that permeated her expression. He knew that the situation was not easy for her, but his concern for the safety of his family was stronger. Isadora, I understand that you want to help, but we need to think about the safety of everyone here at home. We don't know anything about Raphael's past, and I can't just ignore what I saw today in the garden, he explained a little more softly. Isadora lowered her gaze, feeling torn between the desire to help Raphael and the need to protect her family. She knew Fernando was right to be worried, but she couldn't ignore the boy's suffering either. I understand, Fernando, but I can't just abandon Raphael. He needs us, and I can't turn my back, she said with determination, her voice sounding firm. Fernando murmured, seeing the resolution in Isadora's eyes. He knew he wouldn't be able to easily convince her to give up Raphael, but he couldn't ignore his worries either. It's okay, Isadora, but we need to find a solution that works for all of us, he said calmly in his words. Fernando took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to express his concerns. I've been thinking, and if Raphael does something, I don't know if I can completely trust him, he admitted cautiously. Isadora felt a shiver run down her spine, hearing Fernando's words. She had never considered that possibility before, and now she found herself confronted with the fear that her act of kindness could endanger her family. I understand your concern, Fernando, but I think we should give Raphael a chance. He deserves a chance to start over, she responded, trying to calm her fears. Fernando, visibly moved, acknowledged the validity of her concerns. However, fear lingered in his mind, clouding his judgment and fueling his insecurity. I know you're right, Isadora, but I can't stop fearing for the well-being of our daughter, he replied, feeling a mix of fear and determination to keep his family safe. Standing firm, Isadora placed a comforting hand on Fernando's arm, seeking to convey support and security. We will watch over Raphael together, and if anything goes wrong, we will be prepared to handle it, she reassured in a comforting manner. Isadora lay down on the bed, unable to turn off the thoughts that were swirling through her mind. Vividly, she remembered the day she brought Raphael home, his wet and helpless condition in the rain touching her heart. She never thought that such an act of compassion could trigger so many worries and uncertainties. As the silence of the night enveloped the room, Isadora found herself questioning if she had done the right thing by allowing Camila to interact with an unknown child. She knew she wanted to help Raphael, but now, with Fernando's worries looming over her, she questioned the right decision in bringing Raphael home and if it represented some danger to Camila. Camila's face loomed in her mind, so young and innocent, trusting her mother to protect her and keep her safe. Isadora wondered if she had failed in her role as a mother by exposing her daughter to possible dangers, even though her heart was full of compassion for the child. Camila trusts me to keep her safe. Am I fulfilling that role adequately? However, despite her doubts, Isadora also remembered the times when Raphael and Camila played together, laughing and having fun like siblings. She saw the joy in her daughter's eyes and the gratitude in Raphael's eyes, and that made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she had made the right decision. Maybe I'm being too worried. Raphael seems to be a good boy. Maybe I should trust my intuition. Deep down, Isadora knew she couldn't go back in time and undo her choices. All she could do was trust herself, her intuition, and the love she felt for her family. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, hoping that the sunrise would bring answers to her questions and peace to her troubled heart. Isadora watched through the window as Fernando left for work, leaving the house in a serene silence. With a sigh of relief, she turned back to her household chores, planning a quiet day with the children. Finally, a moment of peace, she thought as she began to set up the kitchen for breakfast. While organizing papers on her desk, Isadora suddenly remembered an important delivery she needed to make, a special piece of jewelry for a client who lived in the same condominium. I must hurry to make this delivery, she thought, checking the clock on the wall. I still have time before the children wake up. Determined not to disturb the children's sleep, Isadora quietly left the house, closing the door softly behind her. I hope they keep sleeping for a while, she thought, worried about not interrupting their rest. The sun shone high in the sky, bathing the condominium in a golden light. What a beautiful day for a delivery, she thought, trying to push away her worried thoughts. Upon arriving at the client's house, Isadora delivered the jewel with a professional smile, exchanged a few cordial words, and quickly said goodbye. Isadora drove calmly back home, enjoying the tranquility of the afternoon. The sky was clear and blue, and the sun cast its golden rays over the city. However, as she approached her house, she began to perceive a strange smell, something burnt floating in the air. What could that smell be? She thought, frowning as she tried to identify its source. As she continued driving, the smell of smoke intensified, becoming stronger and more penetrating. Isadora's heart began to beat faster, and a feeling of foreboding spread throughout her body. She looked ahead and saw a dark cloud of smoke rising on the horizon. She then realized it was coming from her own house. A scream escaped Isadora's lips as she spotted flames emerging from one of the windows of her mansion. She felt a lump in her throat, fear squeezing her chest tightly. "My God," were the only words she managed to articulate, her particular voice echoing shakily inside the car. With her hands shaking on the steering wheel, Isadora accelerated, ignoring any traffic signs or driving rules. Her only concern now was to get home as quickly as possible, praying that her family would be safe. She could feel the cold sweat forming on her forehead, her thoughts spinning into a whirlwind of worry and fear. As she got closer and closer to the burning mansion, Isadora stood outside watching as her mansion was consumed by flames. Suddenly, her eyes opened wide as she saw a figure emerging from the shadows, carrying Camila in his arms. It was Raphael, the beggar boy she had rescued from the rain a few days ago. A whirlwind of emotions took hold of her: relief, gratitude, admiration. She looked on in wonder as Raphael ran away from the flames, protecting her daughter in his arms. "Raphael!" screamed Isadora, running towards them. Her heart was beating hard in her chest as she watched the boy put Camila safely on the ground. "You have saved my daughter," she said, her voice broken by tears. Raphael looked at her with a humble smile, his face dirty with soot and smoke. "I only did what I had to do," he answered humbly, his eyes shining with determination and courage. Isadora felt a wave of gratitude and admiration flood her heart as she looked at the boy in front of her. She knelt next to Camila, hugging her tenderly. "You are a hero, Raphael," she said, her eyes full of tears as she looked at him. "We owe you everything." Raphael looked down, a slight blush tinting his dirty cheeks. He seemed uncomfortable with the praise, but Isadora could see the gratitude shining in his tired eyes. "You have done what no one else dared to do," continued Isadora in a soft and comforting voice. "Now you are part of our family. You will always be welcome here." She put her hand on the boy's shoulder, transmitting all the warmth and support she could. Raphael looked at her with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you, Mrs. Is," he murmured, his voice breaking with emotion. He approached and hugged Isadora and Camila tightly as if he wanted to make sure they were all there, alive and safe, while the firefighters continued to fight the flames in the background. Isadora took Raphael's hand, feeling a sense of connection and gratitude between them. They had faced the fire together and now shared a bond that could never be broken. Isadora placed the children in the car to take them to the hospital. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel, and she frequently glanced toward the back seat where Raphael sat next to Camila, holding her hand firmly. The girl's eyes were full of fear, but there was also a flash of relief at being safe with Raphael and her mother. Meanwhile, Raphael was worried about Camila, watching her every move carefully to make sure she was okay. He held her hand tenderly, transmitting a feeling of security and consolation. "Are you okay?" Camila asked in a soft, comforting voice. Camila nodded weakly, a small smile forming on her lips. She looked at Raphael with gratitude, knowing that he had saved her from a terrible situation. "Thank you, Raphael," she murmured, feeling weak but with her heart full of emotion. "You are a hero." Isadora looked back and smiled at the two, feeling grateful beyond words. She knew she had much to thank Raphael for having saved her daughter's life. "Soon we will be at the hospital," Isadora said, trying to keep her voice calm. "The doctors will take care of them, and everything will be okay." She wanted to transmit confidence and tranquility to the children, although inside she was so worried. As the car approached the hospital, Isadora said a brief, silent prayer, asking for strength and protection for her family. She knew there was still a long road ahead, but she was determined to face any challenge that came her way. At the hospital, the doctors quickly took Raphael and Camila to be treated while Isadora waited anxiously in the waiting room. She felt a lump in her throat, and her hands shook uncontrollably. Her mind flooded with worried thoughts as she waited for news. She remembered every moment of the fire, reliving the feeling of dread that had overcome her when she saw her house on fire. Meanwhile, inside the emergency room, the doctors examined Raphael, caring for his burns and evaluating him for smoke exposure. He felt a mixture of pain and exhaustion but was grateful to be there, knowing that the doctors were doing everything they could to help him and Camila. While the doctors worked, Raphael kept his eyes fixed on Camila, worried for her well-being. Camila, for her part, was lying on the stretcher next to Raphael, her face pale and her eyes still full of tears. She held Raphael's hand tightly, seeking comfort in his presence. "Everything will be okay, Camila," said Raphael softly, trying to transmit a sense of calm. "The doctors will take care of us." He knew he had to be strong for her, even though inside he felt fragile. As the minutes passed slowly, Isadora felt a growing anguish inside her, her heart beating uncontrollably in her chest. She wondered if she would ever be able to overcome the trauma of the fire, and if her family would be able to recover. She prayed silently for a happy ending, knowing that she couldn't bear the idea of losing her daughter or the child who had become a son to her. Isadora held the cell phone with trembling hands as she dialed Fernando's number. Each ring of the phone seemed like an eternity, and she felt her heart tighten with anxiety. When she finally heard Fernando's voice on the other end of the line, her voice faltered for a moment before she could speak. "We need to talk. It's urgent," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, even though she was about to fall apart inside. Fernando immediately perceived the seriousness of the situation. Hearing Isadora's tense voice, he felt a tightening in his chest as he listened to her words, his heart racing with worry. "Urgently?" he asked. "Isadora, what happened? Is everything okay?" Isadora hesitated for a moment, trying to find the right words to say. She knew she couldn't hide the truth from Fernando, but she also didn't want to worry him more than he already was. "Raphael and Camila are in the hospital," she finally said, her voice breaking with emotion. "I need you to come here immediately." She took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spring forth at any moment. Fernando felt a chill run down his spine, hearing Isadora's words. He could sense the fear in her voice, and he knew something terrible had happened. Without hesitation, he agreed to go to the hospital immediately, promising Isadora that he would be there as quickly as possible. As he hung up the phone, a wave of panic took over him, praying that everything would be okay with his family. While he waited for Fernando, Isadora felt enveloped by uncertainty and fear. She silently prayed for a miracle, wishing with all her heart that Raphael and Camila were safe and healthy. As soon as Fernando arrived at the hospital, he found Isadora in the waiting room with a worried expression and tired eyes that revealed the tension she was feeling. He approached her in a hurry, taking her hands with concern. "Isadora, what happened?" he asked, his voice full of apprehension. Isadora looked at Fernando with her eyes full of tears, feeling a lump in her throat as she tried to find the words to explain what happened. "Fernando, there was a fire in our house," she began with a trembling voice. "Raphael and Camila were inside when it all happened." She swallowed, fighting to hold back the tears that threatened to spring forth. Fernando felt his heart sink, hearing Isadora's words. He could see the fear stamped on her face, and he knew the situation was serious. "My God, Isadora, are they okay?" he asked, concern in his words. Isadora shook her head, tears running down her cheeks as she struggled to find the words. "They are receiving care now," she said with a trembling voice. "Raphael managed to get Camila out of the fire, but he is injured, and Camila is very scared," she explained, her heart tight as she remembered the distressing moment when she saw Raphael carrying Camila in his arms, both needing urgent medical attention. Fernando felt a lump in his throat, hearing about Raphael and Camila's condition. He hugged Isadora tightly, trying to comfort her in the best way possible. "We will overcome this together," he said with determination. "Our family will be fine, I promise you." But his mind was full of concern for Raphael's health condition, a young man who risked his life to save his daughter. Fernando was sitting in the hospital waiting room, his mind plunged into deep worry, his eyes constantly scanning the hallway as if he expected to see Raphael being brought back from the emergency room at any moment. Raphael risked everything to save Camila. He is a true hero, he thought with a lump in his throat. His thoughts were dominated by the image of the boy who risked his life to save his daughter, now fighting for his survival. He vividly remembered the moment when Isadora told him about the fire and how his heart seemed to stop for a moment upon hearing about Raphael's critical condition. The bravery and altruism shown by him were undeniable, but now, as he waited for news, Fernando felt helpless in the face of the situation. "I hope Raphael is receiving the best treatment possible. He deserves a second chance," he thought with a growing feeling of anguish. Every second that passed seemed like an eternity, and Fernando's anxiety only increased. He wondered if Raphael was receiving proper treatment and if his injuries were too severe to be healed. The thought of losing someone so precious to his family was distressing, and he silently prayed for a happy ending. Dr. Leonardo approached Isadora and Fernando with a serious but reassuring expression, calling them to a reserved room where they could talk more privately about the state of the children's health. Isadora and Fernando exchanged nervous glances as they followed the doctor down the hospital hallway. Isadora's heart was beating strongly in her chest, anxious for news about Raphael and Camila's health status. As they entered the room, Dr. Leonardo greeted them with a kind smile, trying to convey calm amid the tension. He sat in front of them and began to explain the situation. "Mrs. Isadora, Mr. Fernando, I would like to inform you that Camila is out of danger. She only suffered some minor abrasions and inhaled a little smoke, but she is fine now." Isadora let out a sigh of relief, hearing those words and feeling a huge weight lift off her shoulders. However, the doctor's expression soon became more serious as he continued. "As for Raphael, the situation is a little more complicated. He inhaled a significant amount of smoke and had some minor burns. We decided to keep him hospitalized for a few days to monitor his condition and make sure there are no complications." The doctor's words fell like a bucket of cold water on Isadora and Fernando. They looked at each other with concern. Isadora felt a tightening in her heart at the thought of little Raphael facing that situation. She blamed herself for having brought him to her house, exposing him to dangers such as the fire. "He is just a child. He should not be going through this," she thought, feeling distressed at the possibility that something serious could happen to the child. Fernando put his hand on Isadora's shoulder, trying to comfort her with a supportive look, but also feeling the weight of worry on his shoulders. Dr. Leonardo continued to provide detailed information about Raphael's treatment, explaining the care that would be taken during his hospitalization. Isadora and Fernando listened attentively, absorbing each word with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Despite the discouraging news about Raphael's health, there was a feeling of relief knowing that both children were being well cared for at the hospital. Fernando and Isadora entered the hospital room where Raphael and Camila were being treated. Raphael's eyes lit up at the sight of them, but there was a trace of worry in his gaze. Fernando approached him with a comforting smile. "Raphael, my friend, don't worry about anything. You're in good hands here at the hospital. You'll soon feel better." Raphael nodded, trying to smile despite the discomfort he felt. "Thank you, Sir Fernando. I just wanted to make sure that Camila is okay." His voice was a little weak, but firm in his determination to take care of little Camila. Isadora approached Camila, who was lying on the bed next to Raphael. She gently stroked her hair and smiled at her. "Camila, my dear, are you feeling better?" asked Isadora, worried about her daughter's well-being. Camila nodded with a shy smile. "Yes, Mom, I'm fine. Just a little tired." Her voice was soft and sweet, but there was a spark of courage in her eyes, a determination to overcome the scare she had been through. Fernando approached Raphael and put his hand on his shoulder. "Raphael, you are a true hero for having saved Camila. We are very proud of you." His voice was full of admiration and gratitude for what the child had done. Raphael looked down at the praise. I only did what I thought was right, Mr. Fernando. I couldn't let anything happen to Camila. His voice was humble, but there was a glimmer of determination in his eyes, showing his inner strength. After a few days of care in the hospital, both Raphael and Camila fully recovered. The children were discharged, and they returned home, where a new chapter in their lives would begin. Fernando exchanged glances before deciding to call Raphael for an important conversation. They knew the boy had already been through a lot of turmoil, and they wanted to make sure he felt truly welcome in their home. Raphael called Isadora, his soft voice echoing through the hallway. Would you come here for a moment? We'd like to talk to you. Raphael, who was playing with Camila in the living room, looked up, stood up, and followed Isadora and Fernando to the living room, where the two were sitting, waiting for him. Raphael, we've both talked, and we want to ask you a question, Fernando began, looking directly into the boy's eyes. We'd like to know if you want to be a part of our family. Raphael's heart skipped a beat in surprise and joy. Hearing those words, he looked at Isadora and Fernando, seeing the sincerity in their eyes, and felt a warm comfort spread through his chest. Yes, he replied with a radiant smile. I'd love to be a part of your family. The words were greeted with warm hugs and tears of happiness. Raphael felt a sense of belonging that filled his heart. He had never experienced this before, and he knew that from that moment on, he would never be alone again. He had a new family, and his heart was overflowing with gratitude and love. So, after the corresponding legal procedures, Raphael was officially adopted by Fernando and Isadora. The boy found not only a safe and welcoming home, but also a family that loved and accepted him as he was. Together, they formed a happy family, united by love, respect, and mutual gratitude. In the days that followed, the mansion that once seemed cold and empty was now full of laughter, lively conversations, and the human warmth of a united family. Raphael found a family that welcomed him with open arms. As the days went by, Raphael became more and more immersed in the new family routine. The previously silent corridors of the mansion now echoed with laughter and games. Camila took him by the hand, eager to show him her toys and share her stories. Raphael, come see my new room, Camila exclaimed, dragging him down the hallway with an infectious smile. Of course, Camila, responded Raphael, laughing as Isadora followed them and Fernando watched with joy the interaction between the two, feeling that their hearts were overflowing with happiness seeing their children getting along well too. It seems that they have become inseparable, commented Fernando, looking at Isadora with tenderness. Yes, it is as if they have always been brothers, agreed Isadora, smiling. Raphael was enrolled in a renowned school in the city, where he quickly stood out not only among the students but also in the eyes of the teachers. His determination to learn and his positive attitude won the sympathy of everyone around him. The teachers soon realized that Raphael not only absorbed the content with ease but also demonstrated above-average curiosity and willingness to learn. Raphael, you have done an excellent job on this project, said the math teacher, impressed by his performance on a difficult task. Thank you, teacher. I tried hard, replied Raphael with a sparkle in his eyes. As the days went by, Raphael became more and more confident in his ability to learn and grow. He actively participated in classes, asked intelligent questions, and helped his classmates whenever he could. His dedication and enthusiasm were evident in everything he did, and he soon became a figure admired by the entire school. Raphael, you are an exemplary student. Your passion for knowledge is inspiring, said the school principal during a meeting with parents. Fernando and Isadora were beaming, hearing the praise for their adopted son. They felt immense pride seeing Raphael flourish in his new school environment, proving not only his intellect but also his character and determination. After years dedicated to his studies, Raphael finally finished high school with excellent grades. During that time, his passion for science and caring for others only grew, and he made an important decision to follow the path of medicine. I have decided, parents, I want to be a doctor, Raphael announced with determination in his voice. Fernando and Isadora looked at him with pride and support. Raphael, we are happy to see you following your dreams. You will be an amazing doctor, said Isadora excitedly. Raphael enrolled in a prestigious university where he immersed himself fully in his medical studies. He excelled in his subjects, demonstrating exceptional knowledge and an unwavering commitment to his chosen profession. During his internship, he showed a natural ability to deal with patients and a genuine empathy for those who needed help. Raphael, you have a special talent for medicine. I am sure you will be an extraordinary doctor, his teacher told him, impressed by his skill during a mock surgery. After years of study, dedication, and hard work, Raphael finally became a respected doctor in the community. His journey from difficult times on the streets to a prominent position in the medical field was an inspiration to many. As a doctor, Raphael demonstrated not only technical skill and knowledge but also passion and empathy toward his patients, treating each person with dignity and respect, and always being willing to listen to and understand their concerns. His commitment to excellence and the care of his patients earned him an impeccable reputation. He was sought out not only for his medical competence, but also for his ability to transmit tranquility and security to those who came seeking help. Raphael became a beloved figure in the community, not only as a doctor but also as an example of overcoming and success. He continued to inspire those around him, reminding them that with determination and perseverance, it was possible to achieve the highest goals. His life story served as a powerful reminder that regardless of where you start, what is important is the path traveled and the choices made along the way. For Raphael, each challenge faced only strengthened his determination and his ability to make a difference in the lives of those he touched with his work and his example. The encounter between Isadora and the child on the street turned out to be the starting point of an extraordinary journey. Isadora's gesture of compassion when she rescued him from the rain not only changed Raphael's destiny but also transformed the life of the entire family. What began as an act of kindness became the foundation of a new family full of love, care, and mutual support. This unique moment of encounter and welcome not only changed the course of the lives of all involved, but also showed that even in the most unexpected moments, the power of love and solidarity can create bonds that transcend life's barriers and challenges. If you like this story, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support is crucial so that we can continue sharing wonderful stories like this. We greatly appreciate your support,